Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the TCA All Sports Report. As always, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, 680 The Fan, and of course, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Chris Mooneyham, your host, as always, and now we are firmly entrenched into what I guess the last week of January, and right now starting to get into the stretch run of the regular season inside of the winter sports. Before you know it, the spring sports will be taking the field, or wherever they'll be playing their sports. The spring sports are now just a couple of weeks away. Time now to really get the show rolling and take a look at what's happening. Well, as we're so prone to do here in our first segment, we want to take a look at one of the great organizations in all of Georgia high school athletics. And what I mean by that is a great organization that's really putting the focus back on the young people in a positive way, and not necessarily talking about the statistics on the field or the court or what have you. In fact, I'm talking about Positive Athlete Georgia. As many of you know, the TCA has been involved with Positive Athlete Georgia, which recognizes positive high school student athletes for a myriad of reasons, really, from overcoming their own personal family adversity, difficult circumstances, from illness and injuries, or even just kids that are giving back to the community. Positive Athlete Georgia was started by Scott Peterson, who coordinates literally hundreds of nominees, it seems like every week, and his partner with Positive Athlete Pittsburgh, Hines Ward. That's right, the former Forest Park star, University of Georgia star, and of course, a Super Bowl champion in Hines Ward. They have a website that you can visit, and you, the fan, you, the viewer, or the parent, or the coach, or administrator, you are the ones that will nominate these young men and women to win a potential scholarship. You can go to georgia.positiveathlete.org. That's georgia.positiveathlete.org for more details. And again, anyone can nominate these young people, a parent, a coach, a relative, a fan, for instance, a fellow student. You can nominate these young athletes. They can be a freshman or a senior, does not matter what class, and it can be in any sport as well. They've already raised over $10,000 in scholarship monies from local businesses to give to the most positive athletes in the state of Georgia. So make sure you go to georgia.positiveathlete.org for further details and nominate a high school athlete you think should be recognized for their positive contributions to their schools, teams, and communities. The deadline, by the way, March 31st for nominations. So make sure to get them in quickly. And of course, every week, we will feature, at least we hope to make it every week, we will feature a positive athlete from the state of Georgia here on the TCA All Sports Report. We've got 3 this week, so let's get right into the great stories behind these young men and women. All right, 3 nominees this week, and we'll start with Becky Collins, a senior softball player from South Cobb High School. Becky, a stellar athlete on the diamond, maintains a 4.2 GPA, and takes time out of her busy schedule to volunteer at a local elementary school. She also tutors some of the baseball players at South Cobb High School and also helps keep up the fields at SC. Then there's Allie Gray, a sophomore volleyball and lacrosse athlete at Centennial High School over in Roswell, North Fulton County. Allie overcame serious health issues like severe mononucleosis, scarlet fever, and surgery to remove a nasal defect, all within a year. And then she went on to become one of the leading hitters on the Centennial Lady Knights varsity volleyball team. And finally this week, Devin Huffman is a senior basketball athlete at Norcross High School. The Blue Devil, a highly sought-after hoop star by the United States Service Academies. Devin also involved in over 8 service clubs and organizations, and is an active member of volunteering in his community. For the second segment of our TCA All Sports Report this week, we asked the question, have you ever wondered? Have you ever wondered what sort of kickers come out of the state of Georgia? You know, it's really a very underrated aspect of the Peach State's athletic ability, for lack of a better way of putting it. 26 men from the state of Georgia have made an NFL squad as a kicker or punter, including one of the greats of all time, Ray Guy, who played his high school ball over in Augusta. Perhaps, well, in some people's opinions, the greatest kicker in Georgia state history, and for many people, the greatest kicker in perhaps National Football League history. Brad Walsh is the newest member of the TCA All Sports Report, and he handles this report, or this portion of the report, every week, feeding us some statistical analysis, some history, some great stories about the state of Georgia's athletic history, and just as important, the TCA's athletic history. Of course, for some of you who may not be aware, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta reaches all the way back into the 1930s. He's got some great numbers that he sent me this week. As he says, 26 men from the state of Georgia have made the NFL as a kicker or punter. 8 have had careers of over 10 years in the National Football League. But the 1980s may have been the golden era for Georgia kickers. Listen to some of these names. We'll start with Kevin Butler, who of course graduated from Redan. He was a Super Bowl champion, played at the University of Georgia as well, as many of you know. Then there's Chris Gardocki, also of Redan, was a couple of classes after him, or full classes after Kevin Butler. He was a Super Bowl champion as well. Jason Elam of Brookwood fame, just down the road from my house a piece, as a matter of fact, won 2 Super Bowl championships, Brookwood class of 1988. There's John Casey. Don't forget about John Casey. Carolina Panthers fame, of course, graduated from Clark Central in 1987. And then there's Chris Moore, who went to Briarwood Academy, graduated in 1984, and he was the punter for those really great Bills teams in the 1990s. Played on, I guess 3 Super Bowl participants is what Brad's telling me here, in 91, 92, and 93. Another one of the big-time kickers that he mentions here that a lot of people always forget about, Bobby Walden, who was a punter who played over at down at Cairo for the Syrup Makers, class of 1956. He won the Super Bowl championship with the Steelers in 74-75. This year, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta recognized 2 outstanding kickers for our preseason All-Metro team. Ian Shannon of Marietta High School, who I think I've probably called 5 or 6 of Ian's games throughout his career, and Rodrigo Blankenship, kid out of Sprayberry High School, who I take great pride in. Rodrigo was flying under a lot of radars before we got him in the Rising Seniors game 2 years ago. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I knew how good this kid was, and I said it numerous times during that broadcast that Rodrigo was the kind of kid that the Rising Seniors game is made for, a kid who's flying under the radar, doesn't get the pub that he deserves, even though he's got a lot of talent. And he came out of that Rising Seniors game having garnered a lot of attention after banging down some long field goals during the week, during the game, and now, of course, he's a preferred walk-on over at the University of Georgia. Ian Shannon, by the way, looks like he's going to go to Auburn. So that's it for this week's Ever Wonder portion of the program. Time now to take a look at what's next. What's next for this week? Probably the easiest of all segments that we've had. Well, one of the easiest segments that we've had of all time here on the TCA All Sports Report. There is no question that the anticipation is building for February 4th. Wednesday, February 4th, of course, is National Signing Day for high school senior football players who are signing their LOIs, their national letters, NLOIs, national letters of intent of where they will play their college football. Touchdown Club of Atlanta, 680 The Fan, and of course Fox 5 TV have partnered with the College Football Hall of Fame. Rising Seniors is in the mix this year for the biggest National Signing Day event in the state of Georgia, and without question, one of the biggest across the country. How exciting will it be for you to join us down at the College Football Hall of Fame? That's right, you can get tickets, you can come down and join us and watch all the signees experience their first official press conferences and be interviewed inside the shrine of the College Football Hall of Fame. The event will be live down at the College Football Hall of Fame on Marietta Street. The football helmet wall will light up each school's helmet of the signees. They'll be interviewed by sportscasters from 680 The Fan and Fox 5 Atlanta. The interviews will be streamed live. 680 The Fan will be broadcasting live all day from the hall. Fox 5 will feature live sports reports throughout the morning, afternoon, and evening. Touchdown Club of Atlanta will announce the TCA Metro Atlanta All-Star Team. The College Hall of Fame alumni members will be on site, select members, of course. Signees and coaches will be giving passes to tour the College Football Hall of Fame. It is going to be an absolutely stellar, really all-day affair. Of course, it'll all be concentrated between about 10 p.m. and 4 p.m. That'll be the meat of the day, the meat of the program. But it'll be an all-day affair. They'll open the doors early. The College Football Hall of Fame will. They'll be open late. We invite you to come down and join us. If you've not been down to the College Football Hall of Fame, even if you're not terribly interested, I probably shouldn't say this way, but even if you're not terribly interested in the National Signing Day process, I must tell you, as somebody who was lucky enough to be in there on the first day, I got a little VIP treatment. I'm not bragging, but it sounds like I am bragging, doesn't it? That's not what I'm intending to do anyway. My point is, I've already been down there twice, and I must tell you, folks, it is an absolute incredible experience is the College Football Hall of Fame down on Marietta Street. You can personalize your visit. If you're a Boise State grad living in Atlanta, you can go up to the front desk when you walk in the College Football Hall of Fame and register yourself as a Boise State fan. You can get your magnetized pass that you will take with you throughout the College Football Hall of Fame, and throughout certain areas of the hall, you can swipe that pass in front of different exhibits, and it will show you little tidbits that are pertinent to your favorite teams. You don't have to be a Boise State grad or a University of Georgia grad, or if you're like Chip Emerson, you don't have to be a Tennessee grad. But if you are someone like Chip Emerson, you can register yourselves, go up to certain parts of the the College Football Hall of Fame, and they'll tell you about the history of Neyland Stadium and things like that. Really, it is an amazing, amazing affair. And that will be the location for this year's Touchdown Club of Atlanta, Fox 5 Atlanta, 680 The Fans, National Signing Day Spectacular. And time now to switch gears. For our final segment of the show, it's time for My Take. Each week at the end of the TCA All Sports Report, as I mentioned, they've given me free reign, which is dangerous, by the way. But they've given me free reign to have the final few minutes of the All Sports Report for a segment we like to call My Take. A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I'm a straight down the middle, neither conservative nor liberal guy when it comes to many things in life, politics, religion, and of course, especially in sports. And being a play-by-play guy for, well, all of my career and just a little bit of time I've spent on radio, a little bit of time giving my opinion, in general, I'm a pretty straight down the middle guy. The reason I reference that is because of this week's subject for the My Take portion of the TCA All Sports Report. Of course, over the last few years, one of the very heavy subjects throughout the sporting landscape has been concussions. This week, Brad Walsh, the newest member of the TCA All Sports Report, the resident historian at the Touchdown Club of Atlanta, sent me a little report and his opinion on concussions in especially the sport of football. And so I'm going to use the My Take segment to intermingle some of his opinions to go with mine, because I think it's always good to get two opinions, even though we kind of share the same opinion. There are a couple of stats here, or one stat in particular that I want to throw out at you. According to a Bloomberg poll, and this is something that Brad sent me, he says in December, just this last December, 50% of Americans told Bloomberg that they would not let their sons play football. Would not let their sons play football. This is interesting. Now, I want to let some of you in We have a lot of viewers out there that do not have sons, that do not play rec football. Some of you do have sons that still don't play rec football. There is a movement that is going across the country right now called Heads Up. You may have seen some of the commercials while you're watching college football or professional football for the various networks. It's a sponsored National Football League, or an organization that is sponsored by the National Football League. And the Heads Up organization is this. In its simplest form now, there's a lot that goes into it, but in its simplest form, it's the thought process that if you're teaching kids to keep their heads up while going in for a tackle, that's going to get rid of a lot of the problems that we're facing with concussions and other head injuries and neck injuries. In this regard, I absolutely agree. In fact, I think that in many ways, that's part of the problem. This is where I'll waffle, and I'll come back to that point in just a moment. Quite obviously, football is a very dangerous sport. I make no bones about that, and some people will be bothered that I even said that phrase. But it is like being in constant car accidents. You know, they did one of those sports sciences, or some other network did something like that, like what ESPN does with that John Brinkus fella, where they had Ndamukong Suh hit one of those dummies with electrodes all over it, and they said the impact of him hitting a guy at full speed was like getting hit by a Mini Cooper going 35 miles per hour or 40 miles per hour. I forget the exact number, but you see my point. So yes, it's an incredibly dangerous sport, and there's so much potential for so many catastrophic injuries. But the point is, people have been playing football since, well, a long, long time, 100 years, I suppose now. And if we're tackling people in the proper manner, if we're approaching the game in the right way, in other words, if our young people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and getting the coaching that they're supposed to be getting, that will quite obviously cut down on a lot of these head injuries. You see things now like the Guardian cap, that are these protective shells that go over the kids' helmets. Rising Seniors, for instance, the Rising Seniors Foundation has all of their kids practice throughout the week in the Guardian cap. No full-on contact. Is that part of the deal as well? You see, that's the problem for this to be a part of the My Take segment. I'm already at 4.5 minutes as I'm looking at my clock here, and I could go on for 20 minutes. In fact, we could take the entire portion of the TCA All Sports Report, all 4 of our segments, What's Happening, Ever Wonder, What's Next, and the My Take, and we could completely dedicate the entire broadcast to concussions. And that's exactly my point. Because there are so many different aspects coming from so many different directions that tell us so many different bits of info. Yes, it's obviously a very dangerous sport, but when we're not practicing the correct way, when we're not tackling the correct way, and when we're not having the right mindset going into these ball games and during these ball games. Look, Brad makes a great point here. He says that he ventures to guess that most kids play sports because they love it. Obviously, he's saying that, of course, a little tongue-in-cheek. He says, this love breeds a desire to go back out onto the field as soon as possible. Obviously, kids don't want to lose their starting position. They don't want to miss a play. They don't want to miss the opportunity to be a hero. And a lot of times, kids don't want to miss the opportunity to contribute to their team. And some kids, of course, don't want to miss the opportunity to not let down their fellow teammates. So many fingers in this subject. So many points of light. In fact, I promise you that one day we'll try to devote an entire TCA All Sports Report to just this subject. But for now, I'll bid you adieu and see you next week on the TCA All Sports Report.